I'm here today now with Jimmy Collins, and Jimmy has an incredible story to tell. So we'll start at the start. Jimmy, can you tell me your full name and where you were born and the name of your parents, please?
Certainly, yeah. Well, my name is James Collins. I was born actually in a home in Parliament Street, and there onto the Lower Yellow Road, Waterford, number 19. My mother's name is Murphy, Annie, Nancy they used to call her, and my father was William Collins. He had many brothers in the First World War and that, but that's another day's work. We're talking today about the Yellow Road Band. Well, in the Yellow Road Band, I joined in 1947, and I'd like to say I was pitched in rather than joined. My uncle Tommy Collins was the bandmaster at the time, and it was a full band on the road, and they lived directly opposite us. Now, all the people in the area, there was men from Coslow's Lane, there was men from Dial Street, there was men from Lower Yellow Road itself, John Joe Court was one, and there was men in May Lane. You had the Whalens in New Year, you had Georgie Blackie, which is, excuse me, it was Patrick was his name, and oh God, there was a third member, he was a drummer, Perry. And the band was pretty big at the time. The Walkers were in it in Dial Street. You had Jimmy Walker. You had, this is Jimmy's uncle now, Jimmy that you know, worked in the garages, that'd be his uncle. And there was a lot of the families. He had sons that was in it as well. Willie was in it and that. So it was a comparatively big band.
What was the origin of the band?
The origin of the band, well, you know, there's a lot of conjecture in that. There's some say that it was hackneyed, but I think it came from what I was told anyway. It came from the pig buyers on Ballybrick, and when they used to sell that, you know, on the fairs and everything.
Yeah.
That they needed a band because you had the Aaron's Hope band was representing somebody else down the town. So the formation came. I mean, at that particular time, the cheapest form of band you could get would be a flute band. You know. Okay, you have a lot of the men that was with us actually played pipes in pipe bands.
Oh, right.
My uncle was a pipe player. He could play the pipes, he could play the piano accordion, he could play the drums. They were very, very musical people.
Yeah.
You had the Fitzgeralds were all accordion players. So you had a kind of a cosmopolitan crowd.
Would I be right in saying, Jimmy, that, you know, at that time, people could go into bands, if they were musical, that's where they get their instruments.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, they probably couldn't have afforded it.
Oh, you couldn't afford it. Not at all, you couldn't afford it. And who'd be buying a drum anyway? Like, you know.
Yeah.
But we had, Pat Power, myself, we went to in an awful lot into the drum, the 4 drums, 6 drums actually we had. Side drums and that. And, of course, a few of them went wayward and that. But the 4 that we had left, we actually, they were part of, they were actually, believe it or not, we were looking into it, they were actually in Waterloo. They were part of the 8th Hussars and the 10th Hussars that fought in Waterloo, and them drums. And we thought that we would get them insured, like, you know, just drums are drums, and I mean, they were antiques.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get the insurance on. It was so much. As a band, we just couldn't afford.
And they were actually used at Waterloo.
Oh, they were drums. Yes, they were there at Waterloo. Them drums were.
Jimmy, I think I was talking to you last time. For some reason, there's a name in the back of my head about the Yellow Road Band. Is it Sam Barnes or something?
Sam Barnes, yes.
And the thing about they didn't have about the various stages of the band room that they used to practice in. Did you tell me about that? I think they used to pay the rent for some people, and they take.
Oh yeah,
Can you tell me about
that? This was before my time, and the band itself was always in dire straits. There was one period of time before I came on the earth that they were actually training opposite our house in Gallivan's house. And people at that time would always remember that when you went down the Yellow Road, the Lower Yellow Road, there was a tin. There was galvanised tin on the roof. Well, that happened because the band in the early 20s, I think it was the early 20s or early 30s, they burned down the place. Right. It went on fire. Right. They burned it down. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I do know that there used to be one particular gentleman that lived in Costello's Lane, and he'd have to remain anonymous. I wouldn't like to defame his name. But he used to get an awful lot of drink in him, and he'd go down and he'd climb up on the roof and he'd throw sod on the chimney top. Right. You see, because there would be a fire going inside. Yeah. And now I don't think that had anything to do with the fire, but he'd come in then and he'd close the door and he'd lock it and he'd take the key. The key was about this size, yeah. Big one. I can remember the actual key because they were used on the Yellow Road. And if you can get the key off me now, he said, you can get out of the place. And of course the place was filling up with smoke. Yeah. And this was the band room. Yeah. But now, that's a kind of a by the way thing. But anyway, they moved out of there and they had no place to go because there was no money. There's literally no money. And even though there was a swear box there, you couldn't get nothing into it because they'd swear, but they wouldn't put nothing into it.
So if you swore you'd have to put money in the box, that was the idea?
Yeah, you put the money in the box. Yeah. But nobody had the money to put in the box. So it was kind of academic, you know. Yeah. Like they were trying to be democratic and they were trying to organise things, and it was a very, very hard thing to do. I mean, these men loved music. And when you see the flutes in their hands and they're playing, it was absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Now, when I went into it in 1947, I was taught to play the flute by Paddy Fitzgerald. He was a great flute player. And we used to be sitting there and learning how to play the flute. But of course, it took a long time to learn to play a flute. You got to get the tone and you got to do this, that and the other thing which musicians would know about. But the band that we played, we used to know all of the marches before we even learned how to play them on the flute, because we used to be whistling, you know. And my Uncle Tommy used to be conducting, and he used to be wondering, where was all this coming out of? But Bernie, my brother, was in it. Mickey Mann, he was in it. And there was a few more. And it was very slim trim, like, you know, they weren't, it wasn't a place for children, obviously, because you get just, when you were finished, right out, get out. Yeah. You don't be opening the men's mouth.
I'd be saying that to younger kids too, that if you want to learn an instrument, we say like a banjo or a fiddle, you have to have it in your head first.
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what you're saying. Before you even learned it, you knew the tune in your head.
Oh, you knew the tune, you see. Yeah. So you see, what actually happened was, you got so proficient at playing the flute, you wouldn't even bother looking at the marches. Yeah. And it's a good thing in one way, but it's a bad thing in another way. But what happened previous to when I was in the band was they had no place to go. So they would go from, if there was somebody getting evicted out of the house, they would go in there and rubbing pennies and halfpennies together, that they would stay playing in the band with the family there, and they'd be able to pay the money until they were kind of chucked out or things got better again. Yeah. And this kind of went on for, I wouldn't say it was for a long while, but it was an occurrence that happened. Yeah. And the Legion Band then was there, and well, the Legion Band was always over on the Mayor's Walk, you see, and they would be taking some of the flute players off you. And of course, if any flute players fell out in the Legion Band, they would go to the Thomas Francis Mayor Band. Yeah. And you also had the same thing occurred with the Airnsoap Band. And like there was interchanges, but there was a little bit of animosity. But there was never, you know, there was never.
Do you know the tradition, Jimmy? And your aunt gave me the song originally, when I heard it first, was off a kitty, your aunt. The bucket of beer. But that was, could you tell us about that tradition of the bucket of beer?
Well, that was quite literally, that was my Uncle Tommy. He was a great man at putting words together
Yeah.
and making up in rhythm and rhyme, you know.
But it was based on a true story.
Oh, that was based on a true story,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's so simple, it's so uncomplicated.
Yeah, it's a brilliant song.
And it's absolutely brilliant. It just shows you how, you know, and been musical. He was very musical now. He played a drum in the Legion band.
Right.
But then the Legion band broke up with the war. With the war coming on, then that was the end of the Legion band. There was some of them going away or whatever. And our one was sustaining itself from house to house. And then Teddy Lynch came on the scene, and he was the TT. Now, he done a great, at that particular time, all along the side of the Yellow Road in 1947, the houses were condemned. But he got, previous, now this would be 1946, 45, he got the band into one of them until they had to get out. It was another one of those, you know, when all the houses were ready to be knocked, the band would have to leave.
Yeah.
So we were there anyway, and he got us that, and the band, of course, were very grateful. And now the people that would actually went out of the houses were the butlers, the house that we went into. And Matty Butler and his father, the wife and them, they were all dead and gone. But they went up to live in Dial Street. And Matty couldn't settle in Dial Street with his old fella.
Okay.
So he came back down as TC, you know, he was kind of looking after the band room. And we had a big table and he used to sleep on that. And there was incidents with Matt. Boy, he was a lovely man. He was very, very good. He was very good with kids too, you know. He'd always help you, and you know. But every Friday we used to be watching him, and he'd go out and he'd be watching for Father Farrell coming down the road or going up the road, and he'd have this, oh, you want to see the state of the frying pan, black. And he'd have those sausages and they're burning on it. And he'd be out and he'd be, Father Farrell, you know, no meat on a Friday. He was an awful man. These are just little snippets of incidents that comes to my mind that I thought was the funniest thing in the world.
A different world, Jimmy.
A different world completely. And the idea of anybody having money, well, it was, you know. Now, there was lots of men and they were working, there was a few of them working in the flour mills. But basically most of the men, they weren't working. And, well, after the war things got a little better then, and there was Mick Kelly, there was Paddy Fitz, there was 3 or 4 others, Michael Meany, and they went up and they were working in the jute factory. And the reason why they were working in the jute factory, because Mick Kelly got a job in there, and he was on the gates, you know, the timekeeper.
Yeah.
People coming in and clocking them in and that and whatever. And luckily enough, he got 2 or 3 or 4 of them in there, but that kind of settled things a bit, you know, money-wise, because when I say that people had nothing, they had nothing.
Yeah.
Now, we were very lucky in our family. My father was in England working. You know, the brothers were away. They were all sending something home. So we had a few bob. And it's out of humility, I would say that my mother used to get people down up in New Lane doing a bit of ironing or a bit of darning or a bit of washing. And she'd be down in Phillip Street, and I knew another woman that she used to do all the darning for darning socks. In the holes used to come in the socks and everything like that. And she'd be giving them tea. Now, and my job would be to go down and get the stuff off of them and to give them the bag, and they get tea and sugar and whatever, things like that. Now, that's not been bullheaded or anything like that. It's just the people then who had it, they gave what they could to the others. It wasn't, oh, look at them, or, do you know the way the behaviour is now?
That's something, Jimmy, that comes across.
They never.
Your mother's age, the neighbour leaving us.
Oh, yeah.
They had hard lives, and they were hard enough people, but
yeah.
they were great neighbours.
Yeah.
Great neighbours.
Just, there was a great saying, I don't know whether it's all over Waterford or if it was all over, but it was certainly on the Yellow Road. You could have it into the mate to put a taste on the vegetables.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And that's the way people lived. I can remember, oh God, now it's, especially when it comes to food. I mean, in the early days, I can remember the pig's toes going into the skillet. And the greatest pudding that you ever saw made out of flour and everything was put down on top of it, and it was boiled and boiled and boiled. And for the life of me now, I can't remember the name of it. But everybody used to have it, and you would cut it like you'd be cutting bread.
Yeah.
And if you got a whiff off of the pig's toe, because that'd be for the father, you know, that'd be for the working man that'd have to get that. But that's the way it was. But thank God anyway, all that kind of went by the wayside.
Yeah.
But it came to the time in the band when there was little incidents I can remember well. Like the band at one time was called the May Lane Band. And there was another time when it was called the Costello's Lane Band. Now the reason why was, there could have been about 6 or 7 out of Costello's Lane that was in the band, and they thought they owned it. And then you had the Wadens and you had the Fitzgeralds down in, you had about 5 or 6 of them down in the May Lane. And, you know, and this is the way it went. Now, Sam Burns, God be merciful to him, he was a great bass drummer. Now, he was the last bass drummer that was in our band that had two sticks, and he would be playing with the two of them, you know.
All right, yeah.
Like
the Scottish pipe band type.
Yeah, exactly. And his son Mick was a drummer in the band as well. We couldn't get Nish in because he was with the Waterford soccer team. His passions were elsewhere. But I remember 1948 when we won the All-Ireland, you know. And out we came anyway. Got that all we had was a pea cap and a blue around the thing, you see, and a white cover on the top of the caps. And so we thought we were the bee's knees. So off we goes down Phillip Street playing to go over to the railway station. And gets across anyway, and playing the bands came on. And we could hear, coming across O'Connell Street, this boom, boom, this boom. You never heard the beatings of it. You know. And I remember, God, I was only, 11 years of age. I was playing the triangle in the band. And and then out they came, this band. And you never saw anything like it in your life. It was the Aaron's Hope Flute Band. They had a uniform on them. They looked absolutely magnificent. Yeah. And they had the big line, you know, the line skin, the bass drummer had the line skin on there, and they often banging. You never heard anything like it. But for us now it was a joy. Anybody that doesn't like music or doesn't like flute music, well, they wouldn't be bothered.
Yeah.
But to hear this band, I thought it was the grandest thing I ever heard in my life. And over they came over the bridge. And of course, when they saw us, they struck up again. They had to, you know what I mean? But then there was the big parade when the team came in, and we had the big parade and everything down around them. And that was a great occasion. Now, the bad occasions used to be New Year's night, New Year's Eve night. Because the bands would go out at 12 o'clock. And you'd be parading around. And I was in one incident in 1948, it was 48, 49, and we were down on the quay, played along the quay, came around up Patrick Street. We were coming up over Ballybricken, and now, yet again, I think I was playing the cymbals at this time, or the triangle, one of the two, and we heard this band striking up coming down Green Street. And of course, instead of going straight up to the Yellow Road, the band went up Green Street. And I saw the men, the whole of them, and they're taking the flutes out and they're breaking them, putting them into their pockets and everything. And the drummers, and they're putting the sticks together. And there was a battle royal up in Green Street between the two bands. And that was a behaviour that went on for previously. Oh, that's the truth.
Yeah.
There was one time they had a fight, now this is before my time, and the bass drum was floating down the river. Oh, so the antics that these men. But in retrospect, it was the only joy the men had. If they had a few drinks in them, they were so hungry that they'd be drunk anyway.
Yeah.
A few drinks. And they used to really lose the plot.
Yeah.
But the next day then it'd be all gone, all finished, all done away, all best of friends and everything. And that's the way it was in the band. And then of course we were told we had to get out of it then. And now we used to go on our outings too. We used to go down to Kappa White on the bus. On a lorry the first time we went in 1948. We were only kids, and we going down this band, down to Kappa White for a day, an outing.
Where's Kappa White?
Playing down the county.
All right.
And collecting, of course, And this was another tradition, that we'd be collecting when we go to try and get the money.
Yeah.
Sure, there was incidents that occurred with the band then. We were in Tramore one time, and what we done was we went down to Dunmore. We went down to Woodstown, collected. Went on to Dunmore and collected. But there wouldn't be that much money. So we went on to Tramore to try and get a few bob. And we played along, And we went up to Keneally's pub. That would be, what was it called now? It's still a pub, I think it is. Do you know Joe Shea's?
Yeah.
You had Shallows on the other side,
Yeah.
didn't you? And you had Keneally's on the other side.
Oh yeah, that was
On the corner.
yeah. I think it's called Murph's now. It used to be the Dolphin in my time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct, yeah. And in there we went, and my Uncle Tommy and all the men, and all of a sudden the last bottles came up, and we were getting the last bottles. Well, we were drinking lemonade at the time, only all kids, that was with them. And as this was going on, the drink was coming up all the time. And we were wondering, where the hell did the money come out of for it, One of them saw the door open at the store and was going in and taking the last bottles out and bringing them in. We came out of it about 7 o'clock, and the band, now I mean, they were all sauced. They were falling all over the place, the band was, in Tramore. And to try and get this band to play, and we were only all kids. We got onto got onto the bus anyway. Was the bus or truck? I think it was a bus, one of Keneally's buses, that's right. Pat Power had his leg into, and Mick Kelly had his leg into Billy Keneally at the time. So we get the old bus.
Yeah.
Nearly free of glasses. Yeah. Like everything was going well with the band, and the men were getting an old job and they were working and that, and then of course the condemned houses came into it. They were all getting knocked down, so we had to get out. And it was a kind of a big blow to the band, because quite simply we had nowhere to go. So Mick Barnes in Dial Street, he lived, I think it was the third house up in Dial Street, going up, and Babby, the wife, we used to be in there practicing, all the children, and they were all sitting there in the one room, and we'd be banging away and banging away and banging away. Now at that period we lost a lot of our players. My Uncle Tommy finished playing. Mick Kelly was gone. He used to be, he used to play a flute in it. Mickey Meany was gone. Jack Fitzgerald in Emma's Place was gone. There was quite a few, and they were either getting older, they had enough of it. And so we were kind of left with a few old fellas and a lot of young fellas. And this is the way it was. And of course the time came when we just had to get out of Barnes because you just couldn't keep that up.
Yeah.
But old Alki Shea, he had a yard down the back, down in his back on the Yellow Road. And he was a cooper by trade, and his son was also a cooper. But he built a shed out in the back, and in there we went. Now the band was in there for quite a long while. It was diabolical.
Yeah.
And we had a big stove to try and keep the place warm, And that went on. Now what transpired then was we were there for quite a while, and we got a chance to get into the present where they are now, presently at the day. And it was called the Hackett Estate, that was. And we got in there, and there was times when we could play because Willie next door, he was in charge of the Mercy Convents. And I'm certain his wife was there, and Hamptons was on him. But we all knew Willie well because we used to go down to Bontine Lane and climb up the wall to rob the orchards, you know, belonging to the nuns.
Yeah.
And Willie was always there. He always tried to jump, fall. We used to be jumping off of this wall, but the height of it was unbelievable. And but I digress. Pat Power now was after coming from the Aaron's Hope. The Aaron's Hope had folded up, unfortunately. It was rather a pity. But we got Pat, we got Matty Power, and one or two more of them up, which helped to balance the band a bit, you see, and bring it back to some kind of order. So we got in there, and we had a room upstairs because there was a woman downstairs, and she used to be selling. She used to come in from the country, and she used to be selling potatoes and cabbage and everything like that. So we were there, we were quite happy for quite a while, until I had to go. I was out of work. I was working with your father and your uncle, I think it was.
Billy, yeah, in the flour mills.
In the flour mills, yeah. I was working with him there. And Waterford was in the final of the FA Cup. And I went up with my brothers, and the brother said to me, he said, I think now that you've had enough. It's about time now that you, yeah. So I went off to England to work, you know.
Yeah.
So from 1954, 55, I was in England. And of course, all I was getting then was letters from Mick Kelly. He was the conductor in the band. Down at Henry Potter's, you know, they're down trying to get pads for the flutes, keys for the flutes, G sharp keys, B flat, D sharp. Well, this key is gone, we need to fix this pads, the pads that goes in onto them and everything. And if I could keep my eye out and find an old flute, send it over. And marches, sending marches over, you know, and that. And well, that's the way the band went. But in 1959, I came home, and we played in Wexford in competition. It was the first competition that was done in years for flute bands. There was a band from Dublin, our band, Wexford band, and the Limerick band. And of course, we won it. We won it on the Colleen Bourne was the selection, and we won it. And of course, it helped the band a great deal now. We had what we called, another poem was made, The Wizard on the Sticks.
Oh, very good.
The Wizard on the Sticks. And the Wizard on the Sticks was Nicky McGrath. He was a genius with that. Nicky was very good.
Yeah.
Now, I'll have to say this. Pat Power was one of the greatest ever in this town. Not only was he looking after our band, but he was looking after all the bands. And he was plugging down in the corporation all the time that the band should have standard money, that it should get. Pat Power was instrumental in getting all the bands in the town. I'm talking about now the marching bands.
Yeah.
And, you know, Barrick band, Heritage band, pipe band, you know, that Pat Power was actually instrumental in getting all that fixed up in the corporation for the bands, that they shouldn't be going out begging and begging and begging all the time, you know. And but apart from that, his ability to read music was unbelievable. Now, Pat played saxophone, he played tenor and bass with Mick Delahunty. It wasn't he up in Clonmel.
I'm not too sure now where Mick Del was. I'm not sure.
But Pat played with the bands now, but he had a great. But he could read drum music. Nobody else could. Pat was fantastic, and we had 4 drummers. We had Nicky McGrath, was the Wizard on the Sticks.
Yeah.
You know, and we had 3 more with him. God love him. There's one of them, 2 of them dead, I think, and Richie Collins is still alive, young Richie.
Yeah.
But to hear them, we used to win the drumming contests no matter where we went. They were fabulous. We got a few, we played in Wexford, we played all around in that, and, you know.
But it's a good, healthy band, and you have girls in it now, I believe.
There's girls in it now. Well, I don't have anything to do with the band now.
Yeah.
My old Bellis is gone, so, you know, when that's gone, you're gone. But for anybody, like, just a little tip, just a little tip. Do you know this thing that everybody calls asthma?
Yeah.
It's a sickness, asthma.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to get rid of asthma, play a flute. It is the greatest instrument every day, and it keeps. Now, why I'm saying that is this: we had men who left the band years ago, and the asthma came back, and they were all flute players.
Right.
So if you keep playing the flute and learn to play the flute, it's very good for your asthma. It controls the diaphragm and everything. That's only a little tip for anybody that I'd like to know.
Yeah.
But all the time that I was with the band, I loved the band.
Well, you can see the passion in your voice talking about it, Jimmy. You know what I mean? Like, and the history that's there. I mean, like, that history is just unbelievable.
And the thing about it was, like, it was lovely to look at them. Now, the mass bands plays today in the Sacred Heart and that, and it's lovely to see them all playing together and everything like that. But we never had that chance, you know.
Yeah.
You could only go so far, and you couldn't go no further.
Yeah.
You couldn't afford this, you couldn't afford that. It was all about money, and that was the way we were all reared up. Now, I'm delighted to say that they're all doing well now, the bands are, and I'm delighted that they're doing well. But it would have been lovely had I been born a bit later.
Yeah.
I might have had much more enjoyable time.
But Jimmy, the thing about it is it's you know, it's like everything. It's the goodness comes out of the struggle. I mean, like,
it does, yeah.
The present band has, big achiever was because of your struggle. But you could have just easily given it up.
But they're struggling now. Now, Pat and I, in 1995, we always had the ambition, and Mick Kelly, of course, and we love to play in New York, down Fifth Avenue, you know. And to play at St. Patrick's Day. And in 1995, we said we'd do it. And we went and we done it, and we got the band over there. Now, when you're going away like that, of course you have about 500 flute players. You have people, they come out of the woodwork, but we had a band over there now, and I can safely say it was the largest flute band I have ever seen that played there. We had 6 drummers, and we done up the old drums from the Waterloo to play in it. We didn't use the new drums at all there, just to show these people. And we had staff men. We had what do you call the girls that marches too. I
know that, yeah, like the marching band, the
Italian flags.
I can't remember. Yeah.
The size of the band, and we had about 180 people with us that we brought over, and we also had the people in New York. And the funniest thing about it was, we done it. We made it out well. We actually met the cardinal, and outside of the church. We were there in the morning, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, the fighting 69s were there. Of course, it's their parade.
Yeah.
In actual fact, that's what it is. And we were in there. The wife and the family were all there, and we all stood up then when Mass was over, and we started singing our Horn Divine.
Brilliant.
So we all sang it. There was a fella standing next to me. Gee, he said, I'd love to be able to sing that in Irish, he says to me. I said, I'd love to be able to sing it in English. I have not got a clue what it means in English.
Well, you do know it was written in English first.
I didn't.
Padder Kearney wrote that, Brendan Bean's uncle, and it was in English he wrote it.
Well, I never knew that now.
Well, it was later translated into Irish, but in English he wrote it.
Yeah, but You know,
soldiers are we whose lives are pledged to Ireland. Yeah, yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? You know, but I mean, we were playing along, right along the avenue, and we had gifts for the Cardinal and all. Oh yeah, and we were down in Hershey, down in Hershey Mansions with the mayor, Pat, Jimmy Walker, and myself. We went down for breakfast down there, and we had a brilliant time. And we played the next day then, which was truly the 17th of March, because of the dates.
Yeah.
It didn't suit, you know, at New York.
Yeah.
But we played then on the 17th of March in Brooklyn.
All right.
So we played there then.
Yeah.
Well, I had to, because all my family were all in Brooklyn, you know, the Crooks and all them, and, you know, in the
So
cathedral
a
there.
couple of days to remember, Jimmy.
Oh, they were
Brilliant.
fabulous.
Jimmy, do you mind if we get on to something that's very dear to Waterford people's hearts, and that is your uncles. They were your uncles, not your granduncles. Your uncles.
Oh, no,
weren't
my
they?
uncles,
The
yeah.
boys who in the First World War.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you know, it's an unbelievable story, and the first time I ever heard that was from your aunt, from Kitty, and and even still. You know, and Civic Trust, fair play to them, put up a lovely plaque.
Oh, they did, yeah.
But every Waterford person should know about these young boys and what they did and where they came from. So, would they have lived in the Bantine?
Oh, yeah.
Could you tell us a bit about the family, Jimmy, and the origins of the Collins family?
Well, the origins of the where we originated is where most people, funny enough, in Waterford originated from. Most people that are ancestrally from Waterford were all born, more or less, in the St. John's area.
Yeah.
Because that was Waterford.
Yeah.
And so our family was the same. We John's Lane.
All right, okay.
Just next to John's Bridge.
Yeah.
It's gone now.
Yeah.
You know, there's all opened up there. But that's where the Collins family were. And
Was that Mendicity Lane? Mendicity Lane, no, John's...
No, John's Lane.
John's Lane,
There was more than one John's. There was a John's Lane up at...
By the new park.
By the new park, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was another one down by the bridge. Do you know John's Bridge?
I do.
That you're going out.
Yeah.
In there was another lane.
I know
and
that.
that's
I know
the
the
lane.
one you're talking
Now,
about.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was John's Lane. I could be...
No, I think you're right. No, I think you're right.
Where he's from.
I did see a photograph of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, that's me Agnes Collins, or Agnes Thompson was her name. She come from the waterside. So they were living adjacent to one another.
Yeah.
His father, my grandfather Tommy, his father was Patrick before him. And my great-grandmother was an English. Bridget English was her name. So we're related even to the Englishes that lives in the town of Waterford.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, and you know how families change as they go on. But all the lads were... To try and actually tell you where every one of them was born, I know that Paddy was the eldest, and he was born in Robinson's Lane. That is at the back of Ballybricken Church.
Yeah.
My father was the next. He was born in the Tanyard Arch. Now the Tanyard Arch was down where Greer's shop was, in there. And the next two then after that was born in Barrack Street in different places. And to try and explain to all of those places were all landlords. Corporation owned very little of the place. They were all landlords they were under. And of course, you were in a room. And if you had more than one child or two children, you had to go to a different one. And it was the size of the rooms that dictated the terms. And there was how many? Tell me, 6.
In your family, is it?
6, 8 sons.
Okay.
8 sons. Remember I said Doctor was the 7th son.
Yeah.
Richard was his name.
Yeah, okay.
My uncle Tommy was the youngest. Now the two of them were too young to go. To go to the war.
Yeah.
And taking into account that Thompson's, that's Agnes Thompson's father, was a recruiting sergeant in the British Army. And we used to always try and figure out where did this military thing come into our family.
Yeah.
And the only conclusion that I could come to was that he was the instigator of it. Because at the time, an awful lot, a third of the British Army was Irishmen. And I don't suppose that England were too worried about Ireland other than they wanted a few vegetables, the bit of meat and the men as soldiers. They didn't want anything else. That's my reading of it. So this man was getting all those lads to join, either to join or to be in what you would call the territorial army, or reserve. And they would be paid every year, so of course took in a few bob. And they were happy enough, no wars, ideal, you know. But the minute the war started, these were the men that were called up, and they had to go. So God love them. I was just, where they were all killed. And the terrible thing about it is to go out and to be looking at them monuments, and to be looking at a name. Now, you could well understand, we just say, like, even my father, I often wondered how he used to feel about it. That I don't think my father even went out to have a look at the monuments, because there was no graves. There was no graves. And, you know, and all of them, I mean, I have all the stuff there, there's all, you know, that.
Could you tell us, Jimmy, the story about the one boy that was reprieved? Was there a boy that one of the lads that was actually, there was someone even killed and...
Oh, that was my father now.
That was your father, wasn't it?
My father, yes. He was in the 8th Hussars.
Okay.
And the 8th Hussars at that time was stationed in Waterford, you know, Cattridge's Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
No, Cattridge's Avenue.
I do, yeah.
That was a barracks.
Yeah.
That
was the cavalry barracks.
That was the cavalry barracks. And that's why they called the military road down, because, you know, down to the bridge.
Yeah.
And he was in that. Now he was there. He was in the war. He was in the army before the war. He was out in India, and Paddy was the eldest. He was he was a corporal in the engineers, and they were there before the war even started.
Yeah.
So the others then were the joiner-uppers, like, you know, when they came. Yeah. And it would appear that the first one to join after them was Stephen, and he was 16 years of age. He was 16, and he was the first to be killed.
Was he?
He was the first to be killed. You know, and we only discovered, you know, you know when people say like, oh, he's killed in Mons, or Yeep, you know, or the Somme, or the, like, when they're talking about, all you're doing is generalising. But in actual fact, there's all districts where all those different battles all occurred, and
the exact locations not known, I understand.
They only discovered about 3 months ago where he was killed, and that was in La File. And the people in the town of La File didn't even know that there was a battle. Now, since they've discovered it, in Stephen's case, he was 16, and he was the first to die. Since the people there discovered it, they've put a monument up to all of the, you know, a large monument up. Of course, there's monuments all over France. It's unbelievable. And Belgium. And his name is on it. That's where he was actually killed. But what we find a little exciting is the fact that they are excavating the battle area.
Oh.
So we would be hopeful that they might find his dog tags, or they might find something, you know, that we could have a grave.
Yeah.
So that'd be lovely.
It would be nice, yeah.
You know, if we could get him in the grave, and to be instead of going to monuments and, you know, and looking at him.
But, you know, I mean, it's hard to visual. We'll never know what the parents felt. I mean, I know infant mortality was high at that time, but to actually have sons to that age, to lose them in that succession.
But, like, you know, sometimes you have... I mean, I've heard this all my life. I've been, you know, so I'm kind of immune to thinking that, wasn't it awful I'm at the point in saying, good God, how many Collinses would be in the city of Waterford if they hadn't died? You know, and it's not been blasé and it's not been hard-faced or anything about it. But when you never knew the men, all I knew was my father and Richard and Tommy. I didn't know them poor lads that went out and died, unfortunately. You know, I have the photographs, I have everything about them there. But, you know, but I also have to remember this. Since this started, Kilkenny has got a family of 4. And they're on a monument now in Kilkenny.
I know, I met the man who was responsible for that. I was talking to him one night, and he was telling me all about it, and they had a big hoo-ha about the thing up there, That's up, I think it's up at McDonagh Junction, that thing is. But Jimmy, did you ever, that's just something interesting, did you ever write a tune or a song about the lads?
No.
Wouldn't it be nice to have a tune or a song? I mean, I wouldn't know enough about...
It'd be a hard thing to do about men going out to get killed.
Well, you know, you have Willie McBride, and I know, but... Like,
I know. But sure, they were all Willie McBrides.
I know, yeah, I suppose they were.
They were all, you know, and they were all, let's be honest about it, they were all victims of their time.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, and it's a very, very unfortunate thing. And it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened in this. This country shouldn't have been treated the way it was. I'm sorry, but my reflections back looking at the history of it all, we have been very, very shabbily treated in this country
no doubt about
for the last 800 years.
Agree with you 1000%.
And we've been kicked from Jack to Harry as a nation.
And, you know, and you're like me, Jimmy, the more I learn, the more upset I get about it.
Oh yeah, I do.
Because now we have, in recent years, what they did to the women of Ireland during the famine and that. And subsequently to that, unbelievable story.
Yeah.
By God,
imagine men died in this country.
Over the period, you know, I know that was a shorter period. However, the thing about it is that, you know, people were sent away, and I discovered recently that a lot of those women that were sent out from the workhouse in Ireland ended up as prostitutes. What type of life was that? We only get one chance of life.
Well, that's all, yeah.
And, you know, but, you know, I don't know, look, it's as I say, it can be depressing sometimes when you think about it. But I every time I hear of those boys, I think of their parents. To rear them to that age and to lose them. You know, it must have been soul destroying.
Well, sure, the father now, you take Tommy.
Yeah.
Now, I obviously I didn't know the man. From what I've heard, he was very fond of drink.
Yeah.
Now, I do know from being in the band, listening to the old fellas talking, that he used to work on the barges, the sand barges, going up the river and bringing the sand down.
Yeah.
And I think my father done a bit of work with him and Patrick, the eldest, that they'd go up, you know, and bring the sand down and throw it in onto that and off up and whatever. But he seemingly used to get the band out of a bit of trouble occasionally. Now, I don't know how he could drink and do that.
I know, yeah.
But he up sticks and went. Now, people can say, you know, wasn't that a rotten thing to do? And we tend to look at life in such a fashion at the first thing, the poor mother. What about the poor father?
Yeah.
Has he no feelings? So when people would be saying to you about, well, he shouldn't have went, hold up a minute. How do you know what that man was thinking?
Yeah.
You know, how did he feel?
No, you're right there, Jimmy.
And he walked away from it all. He went away to Wales and never heard anything from him.
Yeah?
Yeah. Never heard anything.
The man was probably tormented, like, and
I don't know.
And they could have had a sense of responsibility of letting him go, you know.
But it's very easy to make him guilty, you know.
Yeah.
It's like today, we have all these problems. The thing that gets on my nerves is, I was reared on benediction, on Lent, on Mass, on going to Mass, confession. I was reared on that. I mean, all of us, you were too.
Yeah.
That was our bread and butter and everything like that. Now, we have obviously outlived our mothers and fathers, but particularly our mothers.
Yeah.
The women in this country are so dedicated to religion, it's just unbelievable after the way they've been treated. I can't. But I find it very hard to come to terms with it. I can't understand people who blame the priests. I mean, they're perfectly good men. They're great men to do what they're doing, under the duress that they are under at present.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of people, Jimmy, I feel, have been cheated because they put these men on a pedestal so high.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know?
When you walked off the footpath.
Yeah.
And yeah, all the fathers, no matter who they were, the hat always came off.
Yeah.
You know, and it's that kind of thing that worries me. But like, we're talking about war. We're not talking about you can digress very easy when you're talking about something.
Jimmy, did as a matter of interest, and I do ask people this question, and this is for the future, that people will look at this period of, we say, all this clerical abuse in the church, and they'll ask the question, what did the people at the time think? Did it affect your religion?
Well, of course it did. Of course, but you see, the way I look at it is, religion or anything else in this life, like work, everything, all depends on your own makeup, what you are. Yeah. Now, are you going to wallow in something for the rest of your life? Or are you just going to say, hey, that's enough of that. Let's get on with living. And that's what you have to do. Get on with living. Like, when I was talking about the band there, I was talking about not just the band, and about the poverty that was in the band. Sure, that was overall poverty. That wasn't, there was, you know, I can remember people talking about men retiring from, was it Shaws or Herons? Herons, I think it was or Robinson Ledley's. They got 2 shillings a week of a pension.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just think about it. And they do it, you know. And then we were in the era of, well, we were lucky. We were very lucky. But before us, remember our fathers, they got a watch. If they had a job.
If they had a job.
Yeah.
No, Jimmy, and you know,
had a job.
It's like we had a shop in Dry Street, you know, and except for people like, we say, Bridgie Chasty, Nellie Dillon, my mother, Jim O'Brien, and Roseanne Johnson, all those, everyone was on the book.
And the book, yeah.
Otherwise they would have starved.
Yeah.
Otherwise they would have starved. You know, and the pawn shops.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever pawn, as a matter of fact, did you ever pawn your instruments?
Oh yeah, I do forever again. Sure. That was the main problem now that's where the grandfather came into it. The main problem was to get the band out on the road, you see.
Jimmy, I was going to ask you a question about the tenements, but you really have to say it all about the one room.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I remember even going down to school, I used to go into my mates, even in Stephen Street, at the top of Alexander Street.
Yeah.
There was a tenement there.
Was there?
Oh yeah, I used to be going in there into our mates, and no names, no pactvilles, the fella, and in there. And there was, most people at that time lived down in the most people came out of tenements.
Yeah.
Down Lady Lane, all down all Cross Lane.
Yeah.
Jesus sake, that was unbelievable, the amount of people.
And what you said is very, very true, that the corporation did have houses, but very, very few. And although, even where I lived in Dyle Street, those were belonging to somebody, I don't know who those houses belonged to. But I think it was Lloyd Hutchison used to collect the rent up there. And so, like, yeah, there was no housing for people.
Sure, all the houses up Sleep Keel, down around.
Morris's own
They
house.
wanted all them houses and going out to Terry Pat, going out to the High Pat.
God.
All them, there was none of them. The corporation. Now, I could be correct, I stand corrected, I could be wrong. But they quite literally only started in 1934 building houses.
Yeah, no, I
As a matter of fact, the house that we lived in was owned by that was a farm.
Yeah.
With little houses all along, and there was Gow's Lane going down. That's where the famous one where the bull and the fair went down, and they couldn't turn the bull; they had to kill him.
Oh, that was on the Yellow Road there. That was Goat's Lane.
Goat's Lane.
Goat's Lane. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they had to kill the bull. Was it?
Kill the bull to get around.
So, Jimmy, listen, we'll finish up then, and unless there's anything else that you have to say.
I said, like, you know, just, sometimes you get a sense of despair when you look back and all of those people, all down through the generations.
Yeah.
I can't speak for all the rest of the country, but I've read an awful lot about what happened with the famine, with what's happened in this country, and it's just unbelievable. And through it all of that, and the desperation, and the way people closed their doors and just died, between it all, we have a great nation. And it's the people.
It's the people.
It's the people. It is not the people in charge.
Yeah.
It's the people.
It's the people, yeah. That's a brilliant saying, Jimmy.
You know,
yeah.
it is the people that are like
it
that.
is, because I said, and like you're like me in that sense, that the more I learn, the more I think of how mistreated we have been.
Yeah, and how forgiven we are.
Yeah, yeah.
How forgiven we are.
Yeah.
You know?
And unfortunately, they've stopped now teaching history in schools, I think. So,
Well, that's a shame.
It is a shame, because they will never know. And the only way you learn anything, and what do they say about history? Those who don't study history are doomed to repeat the mistakes.
Repeat themselves, yeah.
You know
Repeat
what I
it
mean?
all, yeah.
Well, Jimmy, listen, I'm really honoured for you to take the time to talk to me today. And the stories about the band and about your uncles are just, you know, they have to be preserved, Jimmy. They need to be preserved for future generations, because younger people coming up now, they will go to Google to find out about the Collins brothers. They'll go to Wikipedia and they won't get the story. But we got the story here today. Jimmy Collins, you're a gentleman. God bless. Thanks very much, Jimmy.
Thank you very much. Can I have a fag?
That's it, you can buy.
I don't.